who's an able-bodied person. I'm not going to yield, but I'm coming to you right now. My friend from Texas, Mr. Roy, advances the so-called insurrectionist view of the Second Amendment, that the Second Amendment's purpose is to give the people the right to overthrow or fight our government or fight the police or threaten armed resistance if the government is somehow being unfair or unjust. This reading is totally, absolutely absurd and flies in the face of the plain text of the Constitution, which in at least 5 different places clearly forbids armed violent resistance to the government. The Republican Guarantee Clause in Article 4, Section 4 provides that the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or the executive against domestic violence. This was put in the Constitution specifically in response to Shays' Rebellion and armed resistance to the government of the United States, which the founders strongly opposed. Here's another provision the gentleman from Texas should consider before cavalierly suggesting in public that citizens somehow have a constitutional right to use arms against our government and our police. Article 3, Section 3, Clause 1 states, in the only constitutional passage that defines a crime, treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them, or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. Armed insurrection and violence against the United States is plainly making war against our government and thus is an act of treason. And I could cite all of the other ones. And what do they have against this? A quote from Patrick Henry, an anti-federalist who opposed the Constitution precisely because he thought it gave too much power to the federal government and didn't endow the people with a right of violent resistance against the government of the United States. That's not constitutional law. That's a constitutional joke. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields. The gentleman yields.
I think I figured it out. The reason that Republicans are so desperate to paint themselves as patriots and keep on kissing the American flag is because they're compensating for the fact that, in reality, they don't know much of anything about this country's laws or the Constitution. They have so perverted our nation's founding documents to conform to their partisan political agenda that at this point, they just spout whatever platitudes they learned from Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity, and then they pretend that those same exact words are in the US Constitution, which I suppose works when you have a low information audience, only Jamie Raskin is definitely not a low information audience. I mean, think about it. If the whole point of the Second Amendment, according to these Republicans, is that Americans should be able to be armed to attack their own government, then why are there also numerous provisions in the Constitution forbidding the attack against the US government? The fact is that either these Republicans know the truth but are using deception to trick their own supporters, or they have no idea what the Constitution actually says. But either way, if you want to learn what our founding documents actually say, I'd probably recommend finding someone who doesn't have an R next to their name to explain it to you. In reality, here's why Republicans lie about the Second Amendment. The gun lobby finances their re-election campaigns. The gun lobby's sole priority is gun manufacturers selling more guns, meaning that they basically pay these Republicans to help gun manufacturers sell those guns. When Republicans tell you that you need to be armed because the federal government is coming for you, what do? You buy more guns. See how that works? Is the federal government actually coming for you? No. But did you just spend money on a gun anyway and enrich the very companies who fund certain politicians' re-election campaigns? Yes, you did. Republicans don't view their supporters as constituents to serve, they view them as marks to exploit. In fact, you may notice that just about every quote-unquote solution to gun violence always happens to involve the sale of more guns. You know how Republicans want us to arm all the teachers? That means selling more guns. You know how Republicans want us to arm cashiers and clerks and tellers? That means selling more guns. You know how Republicans always crow about needing a good guy with a gun? That means selling more guns. And so even despite the fact that there is a direct correlation between more guns and more shootings, still the only acceptable solution as far as Republicans are concerned is more guns, which just so happens to only benefit the companies that profit from the sale of guns. But hey, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. And finally, in the meantime, just as a general rule of thumb, when the choice is between Chip Roy or some other random Republican spouting slogans from Facebook memes, and Jamie Raskin, a constitutional law professor and the intellectual titan of the House, you put your money on Raskin. Before you go, couple things. First, if you want to support my work, the best way is to subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. And second, if you want to see and hear more from me, check out my website, briantylercohen.com. That way you can get links to my podcast, merchandise, ways to donate to voting rights organizations, and so much more. The thumbnail is also right here on the screen, so go check it out. And as always, Thank you so much for watching.